in where you can.
I
Is
should have recorded the
Hello,
meetings before
Tahira.
that, Dr. Rini. Sorry about that. So the meeting's being recorded from now, so everything's on record at the moment. But
Yes.
just a bit of a chatter before welcome in the meeting, Tahira. So can I? How do we want to do this, Tahira? Would you like to chair and push it forward, or how should we do it?
We'll leave it to Dr. Arini. Basically, this is a pilot preparation.
Yeah,
So, and it's a Q&A for the various eco-societies, how to prepare for the pilot, as
yeah.
we plan for early October. So,
Okay. So
okay.
now we're recording it, so we're capturing all this now. So thanks.
It just when we first came online, I was just outlining a little bit for those that didn't know much about the background. Leaf was asking a couple of questions, and I was just giving him a bit of a quick overview of how it's designed from the child is born, time the child is born, as it integrates in the community, and how it involves also the community giving back into the school, which in America, when I was doing that, we called it civic engagement, which is a lovely term of the idea that we're all responsible for the growing and development of the child. So, do you want people to ask questions? You've sent them the information. Is that what you want them to ask questions about the
Yes, yes.
implementation, or if they're having
I've
any
sent them the
challenges?
broad, yeah, I've sent them the broad plan which you thought of. And we have right now Pakistan, was it Pakistan? No, Nigeria's here. Uh, Kenya, CIS here. The others, I'll also remind them they're coming on board. So please take a look at the plan, broad plan, which Dr. Arini has shared. And you can
Do
ask
you have
questions
that
how
that
to
you can put
prepare.
online, or do you?
Yeah, we can
I've
do
got
it.
it on a screen if you can, if you need it to go up, but I need to be able to share.
Yeah. I need to give you permission. Do you
Yeah. Can we have the document once again?
Share, okay.
are you able to share, Dr. Rini? Oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah, so just as a quick overview and to refresh your memory, it's a matter of deciding whether you can achieve this in a 1 hour session or whether you'd be better with a 2 hour session, and then having a follow-up conference where the participants can just talk about their application of that particular area. So my goal was to make it really practical, and to make it very applied to everybody's circumstances. So it doesn't matter whether you are the leader of the group, you are the supporter of the group, or whatever you are, is that everybody has to be involved in this type of understanding. So it's not becoming proficient in it. It is about understanding its conceptual characteristics, of it all. And so it's really, once you've identified a map, from a map of the social brain, and people know what social brain they are, then each family can know what are the strengths of the mother, what are the strengths of the father, how they complement each other in the family, understanding how their children might be the same or different to themselves. Then understanding that emotion is the basic feedback loop of how a person is progressing. So it's really important in how to manage and work with their emotions, and then meeting their emotional needs. Understanding is there's language for each of the social brains of how you connect with each other, and then about strengthening your missing area for balanced development. So it's just really a very broad overview that gives you the tools to be able to consult together as a family, to be able to support each other as a family, to be able to participate in having a language where they can solve challenges. Then when it goes to the neighborhood, it's really understanding then really how the neuroscience of the brain works in this particular process. And we've tried to make it as simple as possible to apply it, and how they would then use that to set up their play and learn environment in the neighbourhood or in their home, to look at what particular areas of interest that you inculcate or develop in the child, and then understanding how you guide and support the developing emotional needs within a community setting, understanding what values are the most important and how you go about learning those through stories and songs. Then what you do to be able to bridge the gap between the different social brains, looking to see that we are meeting the needs of both the home and the neighbourhood, and how you create an environment to support that, and then looking to see how that each child you develop their and extend their learning opportunities through the use of the senses and the imagination, and then just the early stages of a wise choice program, which is about guiding behaviour. So, in understanding that all of this is about how you develop values and how you develop behavior to support those values, and how you make that practical, and how each person can be a guide and support to each other in developing this, as a very quick overview. Any comments, any challenges? I mean, David, yesterday you were talking about risks and a risk analysis. And of course, when I was thinking about that in relationship to this program, is that one of the major risks is tradition. And because we've been used to, and we learned through role modeling of our parents, then we automatically have many unconscious behaviors we're not aware of. So just becoming conscious of your own unconsciousness, is a major risk, because you're bound in by tradition, and you have to become so conscious and work on little by little, day by day, to be able to know what behavior you're trying to make more supportive of the role of children, because we have been brought up to think that children are naughty, or they're sinful, or they're difficult, or they're challenging, rather than understanding that within them they have all the potentiality of becoming godlike. And it's a matter of how do we provide environments that will support them, and what are their natural talents and their natural strengths. And that behavior is a competency. It's not something that should be punished or to be have consequences for, or all the ways that we have worked with children's behavior to try and get them to conform to our emotional and social needs. All of those are contrary to how the brain is actually wired, and it's wired through love. And so, therefore, this being able to move it from, if a child is naughty, what we see as naughty, then that we have to do something to correct it. Yes, we need to correct it, but we need to develop their capacity and their competencies. And that a family and a community needs to be very clear about what the expected behaviours are, what the expected values are in doing that. So I think that is the risk is of how you do that in unity and not be the cause of conflict, because you have a different idea or a different way of doing something. And so peaceful resolution is important, and also the support of each other without trying to overpower the child, but how you teach them and help them to learn to become I guess the best they can be. I don't know what else you saw, David, as some of the risks.
Is that me, the David you're referring to, Arini, or is it David Livingston?
Sorry?
Are you referring to me on that, on the risks?
No, I'm just saying, because you were talking about it yesterday, and I didn't know if you'd, in looking at the educational program, whether you'd identified risks
Yeah, well, what I'm doing at the moment is putting together like a mechanism where we can handle the risks. I think the last time I put something formally on the risk on the portal was when I was talking to Suresh about funding aspects and the whole thing, the whole thing together.
Yeah,
And certainly for each of the projects, the risk is or concerns are important, and I will be developing that and giving away, allowing a way for people to comment and develop them. But
right.
I'm not really ready to share that yet. But I've taken that risk that you've mentioned from there, and that will go into the risk assessment. So it's very important that we build that up. Not only from the basics, but it's throughout the whole of the program, implementation of it. So awareness, as you mentioned, supportive environments, competencies, unity, all of these things are topics which need to be brought out. And the landscape now will be quite different to what it will be once the discussion has all happened. But what I'm hoping is that we can develop that into like a mind map form, what I tend to work with, and then it will be very clear to everybody what the risks are, like the concerns.
I'm sorry, Arini, I actually have a question on the technical application of this of like say this educational program. So basically, what you're talking about is a program that involves the community in during the early years of development to try and shape behavior. So. What are some practical ways that you go about achieving this? Like, is it like, say, for example, seminars involving both adults and kids talking together, or how does this look like in real life? And the reason I'm asking is, as I previously discussed, I'm not going to go too much into it right now, but Garden Fleet, which is the project I'm currently spearheading, is to dispose of trash, and also to educate people in the need for minimizing, trash, or not throwing trash into the sea and so forth, so that we can prevent future projects. We can prevent ourselves from going back and then cleaning up and doing future cleanups. So and basically, what practical tools, things that you do to prevent these things from happening, and have programs already been conducted that have been successful?
It's there's a number of things I could say, um, but just there's three processes which we know the brain goes through in the learning process. And so this then governs how we go about doing things. So the first stage is relaxed and alertness. In other words, learning has to be fun, and that you do things as closest to real life as possible. So if you're talking about in the home, then what happens is that every moment where a child is not able to complete what you want them to the expectation you have is a teachable moment. So it's an opportunity of reflection. So what happens is that emotion patterns memory. And so when you have an emotional dislocation amongst your children or your family or husband and wife, it's a moment you can take to go back and look at it and find out, what did you feel? What did the other person feel? What was the missing virtue? And what actions could you take to overcome that next time? So it's this idea of continuous improvement. It's not about reprimanding a person because they didn't do something, because that immediately downshifts the brain and there's no learning. So it has to be joyful. The second thing is you try and invent it into games or activities or community activities or things that the family does where you are doing together. So it's I mean you may obviously the delivering the program, you're doing it over video conferencing, but to apply it in the normal thing is that you take particular activities that apply to that household. So for example, if patience is one of the things that needs to be developed in the household, then you'd come up with three actions of what patience would look like. So, like in your work, is that if you're looking at removing with a litter, then you see what is it that you're trying to do here, setting those goals, and then it's the idea of doing taking one thing, looking at it and practicing it, because you're going to learn it through repetition, through being systematic, and through consistency. So it's about fine, doesn't matter what it is, whatever practical activity, there has to be repetition built into it. There has to be consistency, and there has to be system. So you do one thing at a time. So it's like combining how we know how we learn, and we learn in the same way we learn to read. So if you remember how you learn to read, which most of us don't, it's the same three things of consistency, of repetition, and of being systematic, taking one thing that people have got. But it's basically getting agreement in a family or in a community of what it is the most important to do before the important, so that they can then set a goal and that they can design what actual activities they're each going to do. You have to be able to translate it into action. And then through the learnt experience, you go back and you reflect on the actual experience to find out what worked, what would you do differently. So it's the idea that you're always moving it forward to keep the motivation happening. Does that?
Can I say something? It is just a think aloud kind of a situation. In India, we have schools, and in each class, say we have grade one, we have about 40 to 50 students in each class because of the overpopulation, like I said. So, like grade one has four sections, and each section has about 40 to 50 children. And now your method, though I totally agree with you, will have to be, and more so, our society is a very heterogeneous society wherein people come from various social backgrounds, different culture, because you know how it is. India is a very homogeneous, heterogeneous at the same time, but they are mixed together. So, and they have beliefs and ideas which are so different from each community. Each community, which is, I talk about the urban community, is totally different from the rural community. So now the question in India, if I start up something like that, what kind of a target audience are we looking for? Are we looking for totally elite, or people who cannot afford? That sort of a question comes to my mind, because Indian education is mostly, unless it's a most of the schools are private, the government schools don't do very well. So the very elite, which has about 10 to 15 students in each class, is about, it's just beyond expensive. People for who are really, really rich can afford those private schools. So in general, every class has about 40 to 50 students. So how do you think it would be possible? And the teachers are paid like nothing, and in the sense sometimes 10,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees would be approximately, one pound is 120 approximately INR. So 10,000 rupees, you can just divide it how much, not even, I think, 100 pounds, lesser than 180 to 90 pounds approximately. And just a little more in dollars, because dollars and in INR is about 85 to say approximately 90. So they cannot afford it. It's very, very difficult. So my question here again is, like, I would like to underline is, what kind of, if you, in terms of India, what is it actually we are looking forward to? Are we looking forward to an institution which is philanthropic, and we are generally helping children out from all stratas, and it's come and join us for the pilot project, and eventually sort of just hone on to the elite, or have a section which is flexible and open to everybody else? Because this is the question that has been troubling me since day one, that what you are saying totally makes sense to me, and it is very effective. However, to deal with 40 to 50 students and their parents who live all over, the distances are so much. the population is impossible to, and sometimes they are so wary, they don't want to, though there are no rights of privacy in India, but they don't want to share. They're so secretive about their personal lives. So I'm thinking about, do you think what actual strata of the society we are planning to target in Asia? I mean, South Asia, because Europe, UK, it's and even Canada, Australia, and US is a totally different ball game, because that's why most of our Indian students go abroad to study to these countries, because of the practical aspects which are taught here. In India, the theoretical knowledge is good because the teachers can only prepare them theoretically. It is impossible to do practical things. So, am I making sense to what, does it make sense to you, Arini, what I'm talking about?
Yeah, totally. And I think that what's happening in the eco-societies is the idea that you take a community that's committed to developing their emotion, their social and economic development of their village. And so ideally, I think to have a pilot group where that is possible to have, where you've got people committed to a community and wanting to grow the community, and wanting to look at ways that will cause their children to thrive. And yeah, I mean, to take this model and put it into a city, you can do, but it's a whole different way of applying it. What we're talking about here is really trying to start from the grassroots up to be able to work with the children so that you set the neuro science of the brain in a way that is really it accelerates learning in what it's doing, and that we know from best practice that is going to involve everybody. And as I was talking to Harakat beforehand, and I was saying about it's got to be joyful, then as close to real life as possible. So doing projects for the village, or growing things, or attending to something that needs some help and support. So there is that emotional buy-in that we're all in this together. And the last thing is active processing, where you're reflecting on how well something is done and then working out how you will improve it in what you're doing. And so I think it's best if it emerges out of a desire of people that are really in a position where they just don't have the means or the opportunity to develop it. Then it's the most powerful, because you can start to see how people are starting to transform their lives because they're taking ownership and taking responsibility for what happens in their families, what happens in the community, and that's not relying upon a handout from someone else. So you're trying to teach people to use the skills that they've already got, and then what do they have to enhance to be able to be creative in planning opportunities and experiences, and not to be bound in by the way we did it 200 years ago. That we live in a different time now, in a different way, and we've got different methodologies available to us to learn. And so it's being able to be as creative as we can be, and people applying the simple process of, and I mean, within this, there's a series of capabilities that I've articulated that cover all the 9 intelligences that a human being has. So there is a framework to how we would organise activities, but they can be simple things that they've got resources and availability to have, because it's about developing capability. It's not about just head knowledge and saying, well, I know this or I know that or I know something else. Well, this is about how you raise a child to be enterprising, how you raise a child to be responsible, how to be civically engaged. So it's not just I'm going to learn and now I don't apply it anywhere. It's like it becomes very much embedded in the actual lifestyle of the village.
Yeah,
So,
that totally makes sense. But people who would be open to such an environment or such a pilot, or in another words, I could say such an experiment, would be who don't have anything to lose.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
they, yeah, because they would be generally like in India, like have an NGO, a non-governmental organization. The children who come to my NGO are the ones who are like really, really poor. And the middle class and the middle class doesn't have time. They are running from 9 to 5 jobs and multiple jobs at the same time. They are, the children are being passed from one maid to another, and the elite, they would not honestly want to experiment with these things. So I'm just being practical till the time the eco society doesn't come up, or we assign a place or target a place wherever in the world. Till the time we don't take an experimental group and practice and practically demonstrate that these are the consequences of this is the right way and this is the wrong way. I mean, sort of experimental. Till
Yeah.
that point, I don't think people will be open in my country, at least. I'm just thinking
No,
aloud.
I would
Yeah, another.
start.
Yeah, go.
We're not trying to compete for the education market. But you
Uh-huh.
could find a group of parents who really want to improve the well-being of their children and find out how they can assist their children. I would start somewhere like that, something that where you don't normally have a highly structured, formalized process of doing it, because then they've got a lot of history of how they're doing it. But I would take where you've got parents who really are motivated to really want their children to be the best, and you don't have to have material resources to do that. It's about how do they support their child to in the way they manage them, the way they train them, the way they bring them up. I would start with something small in the family, when particularly for small children or babies, mothers who are willing to learn. You don't want to go into a highly complex environment to try and work with this. You start with something where you make and change the attitudes within the home environment, and then they can get some of their neighbours together, and because they know them and they trust them, and that they can bring them together to be able to have some support of their children's classes as doing it. So you just start very simply to start with.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. In fact, I could really visualize in my school. I have a lot of children who are sort of breaking down with high ADHD and things like that. And the parents are desperate because counseling and psychologists are not very common. And it's like going, if you refer somebody to a psychologist or a counselor, it's like they're mad. So I'm thinking of these these students whose parents are really keen to uplift their children, maybe an extra class over the weekend or on a holiday, where the parents come to the wherever place we designate, and then we meet and catch up. So that kind of environment does make sense to me, but not in a formal localized school, established, and what I presume the whole thing is going to be, and start a playway kind of a school. So that makes a lot of sense to me now, that it's not for everybody in general, or a targeted society where you charge for teaching them. For the pilot project, at least we can just have parents and students who are cooperative and would like to add something on, add value to the present education system in a different way. So, yeah, now it makes sense to me. Thank you, Arini.
Okay, Sanika.
Hello.
I think Kola from Nigeria, is it?
Yes,
Yes.
from Nigeria. Good afternoon. Please, I mixed up the startup time, so I came in late. So my question must have been discussed. Nevertheless, I want to ask one or two questions. regarding the Nigerian group. We've done a lot of works. We formed the group and we are identifying the pupils that will be involved in the pilot programs. So we are thinking between the ages of 3 and 10 based on certain criteria. But the questions I want to ask today, please, before the question again, we ensure that those who forms the fulcrum of our instructors are people with adequate trainings in educational delivery, people who actually studied childhood education in various higher institutions and with relative experience too. So my questions go thus. How can we adapt this Arini program to reflect Nigeria's unique cultural, educational, and community structures so that it resonates with both urban and rural children? And also, will the pilot encourage participation of children from different backgrounds in Nigeria, such as those in public schools, rural communities, or those with limited access to technology? So, in conclusion, if the pilot succeeds in Nigeria, what structure will be in place to support continuity and expansion so the impact goes beyond a one-time program? So those are things that my teams come up with.
Okay.
And I'm
So
presenting
the idea is to build this into a train the trainer program. The first part of the program as a pilot program is to give all the players and participants in your eco society, whoever can participate, an overview of what it is that we are trying to do. Because if you train one or two people to do it, they can do it, but then other people don't know about it. And so the first phase in the pilot program is just so that people can see how useful it is and how applicable it is in their own learning and in their own life, because we tend to only go and be interested in those things that affect us personally. So therefore, if they can understand what that means for them, what it means for their family, and then the idea in the next 6 months would be that you train trainers. So they would do a more in-depth study of the 4 strategies of being able to, on the parenting, on the social brain, on the Wise Choices program, and on the Play and Learn program, which are all units in making up the total program. Then you train the trainers so that then the next phase after that, and this obviously we have to have funded to get it going. And then when you've got trained the trainers, they can then train the next lot of people. So we're not designing it based on outside exterior help forever and a day, because it's just not, you can't make it, it will fall over. And so if you then take those people out of that group that are passionate about this, and then they become strong with that. And then also the other eco societies support each other. So that if there's people who are really interested in the social brain, then they share their experiences, they share what worked, they share what they understood. As far as its application goes, I've been doing this now for 23 years. But the last phase that we've applied it in has been with children who have disability of some sort or special mental or neuro needs. And I focus on working with the parents so that they know and understand their child. And then we help them to come up with strategies that we know work for that particular social brain. There's 6 different ways the brain is wired. And so if we have a program that's tailored to that particular need and they know how to manage that child and motivate that child, they become so convinced of the power of the program because it makes such a difference in the way their relationship is built between themselves and the child. and between the adults in the community. So it's like it has to be experiential. For any learning to work, it has to be experiential and it has to meet that point of pain, which, of course, if you're a parent, you know how challenging it is dealing with children and to getting them to be motivated to be able to bring out the best in them. So it's designed to constantly support the next group of people coming through. Does
Okay.
that answer your question?
Yes, 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 yes. I was going to ask of the neuroscience aspect of it, but you've actually dealt with it. So what we are doing here is we are combining this with the EcoSocieties efforts, and we eventually, in the long run, want to establish this as an institution that will take care of that vulnerable group of young minds,
Yes.
so that when their minds are being shaped, it will be shaped along, or when their brains are in the prime wiring stage for virtues, choices, and habits. The very foundation of the Arini method, as highlighted, will be taken care of. So it's catch them young, sort of. Thank you.
Yeah, because there's two issues you're dealing with. Those where they have not had the necessary support, and I think we circulated an article to you about the importance of how we raise a child under 5 years of age and how when you do it in a line with what is basically the mammalian way of raising a child with a lot of love and a lot of support and a lot of support, which has been true of many of the African villages, is that this is something that you've had great capacity for. And so there's things that are natural to your culture, natural to the way you do it. It's a matter of strengthening those that are more effective because it's well proven research that if you work with a child and give them the tools to know how and set the architect or the neural architecture of the brain so that they know how to make a wise choice, and that therefore they don't engage in the risky behavior when they become young men. And if they don't have a purpose and a focus for a place in society that's naturally part of the village and how the village works, then of course they're creative people. They'll look for whatever it is that gives them the thrills and the spills. And just to give you a little bit of background, is that I was principal of an international secondary school in Canada, and we had children from 35 different countries. And we developed a program, a world citizenship program, of what are the capabilities on the personal level, on the interpersonal level, and on the societal level. And we defined that in what knowledge, what skills, what attitudes, what virtues were needed by each of them. And they were part of the design of the program. But after 1 year of its application, 64% of our children ended up on the British Columbian Honours Roll, and we went up 8 rankings academically. Now, that was without me just making all these changes. Then I spent 10 years doing doctoral research to try and find out why it worked. And so we're at the permutation now of taking all those elements of what I know works through applying it over the last 20 years and seeing what an incredible difference it makes to children and to the way they function and the way they work.
I get it.
Good.
Okay, can I raise a question here?
Sorry.
Ahmed,
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead, Ahmed.
Okay, I wish to align my questions with the questions raised by Mr. Kolaole. However, the only thing that is missing in line with my thoughts with him is the fact that in the whole program context and structure, I cannot, or my team cannot be able to see where is a support of funding is being factored. This is given by context peculiarity of our operational areas. So I just wish to ask, okay, at what point can this support, financial support, comes up within the pilot stage? Or is the pilot has nothing to do with financial support until in the long run? Because we really need to have a clarity based on where all these things will be factored in. Thank you.
Tahira, do you have any comment there?
Not at this point. Who was that? Was that Kola or somebody else?
It was
That was
Ahmed.
Ahmed. Ahmed from Kaduna.
This is Ahmed. This is Ahmed.
Okay. Let's look into that. And I'll talk to you separately on this. I think a few other people have questions. Hanatu, also from Nigeria.
Yeah.
Hani?
I'm with you.
Yes. Do you have any questions for Arini or some points you'd like to raise?
Oh, no, I don't have any question.
No questions so far. Okay.
I think the essential principle to understand here is that everyone's situation will be slightly different. And what we've tried to do is design a program that can then be personalized to your own situation, your own circumstances. It's not so specific that you can't then make it applicable in the different situations. And so there's three aspects here. There's the environment in which this is functioning and working. And that's being aware of what is the environment that's necessary and you'll learn that as a process of doing. By doing it, you'll find out what things are barriers, but it's about removing barriers so that people can work with the knowledge, work with the information, find out ways of overcoming any challenges. So it's a dynamic process where you're working, which is as well as put any program into place. But it's got to be a program that works in your village and in your circumstances, and that you've got sufficient creative capacity between us all to be able to share what is working and what we found if we encounter challenges in working with it. But the whole purpose here is that you are trying to develop the human resources to become more and more capable of supporting and assisting their own development, not relying upon others coming in to fix it, and doing that. Nothing ever works that way. It's about using and understanding the resources. And I share an example of the principle of this is that did a lot of work in social and economic development. I was working with a guy who was from UCLA. He was a medical doctor. And his wife was doing work in the early health development in villages in Africa. And the only resource that they had in this village was grass. There was nothing else. And the degree of animosity that existed between the villages was very strong. And so it was quite a dysfunctional society. But they worked with the village because they wanted to work on the health. So what they did is that they used the only resource they had, which was grass. And then they came across some looms, weaving looms from Sweden, which they were able to bring into there. And then so the upshot of it was that they started to create really interesting display pieces or pictures using these particular resources and weaving it and spinning it and whatever. And while they were doing that, they then focused on health and talking about health and what the things that they're doing with their children. And eventually they had all these networks where they were selling their artistic works into the marketplace in Europe. And they were so successful that the local politician's wife wanted to come in and take over the project. But this was an amazing project of being able to make sure that they built with what the resource was and then were creative and bringing in and finding the resources to help them. So they brought in a person who was an art teacher who came in and helped them and trained them what to do and how to do it. So I just give that as an example. This is not in an educational area, but of what can be done, even with nothing but grass, in the way that you make sure that you become resourceful and that you build on it and you become entrepreneurial. And so being able to help children to be entrepreneurial right from the beginning totally changes the mindset of how you go forward.
Thank you, Arini. Anybody else?
Can I just point out, Dr. Rooney, something that might be obvious, but I'm thinking of the method, the pilot that we're bringing in is not going to replace anything. It actually is something which is additional to what's already there. Because again, taking one of the what someone said about the India situation, you've got an established way of doing the education and making things work. And so this is not something that's going to replace any like a school. It's going to be something which is additional to the community to enhance the various schooling that goes on, and possibly will change it, but that's not the objective at the outset. Is that roughly correct, Dr. Arini?
Yeah, I think that's a very good explanation of it because it's understanding that we need to, because the conditions are so fierce in the outside world at the moment, and there's so much inequity and there's so much dysfunctionality. It doesn't need to be because the human will is amazing of what we can do and how creative we can be and how you can find the support if you network it across the globe of being able to support each other in moving forward. And so it's being able to shore up the points where you can strengthen in a society. And we know at the moment that as parents, we're never trained to be parents. We just somehow expected to know how to do it. And so if we are going to be able to systematically change this, we've got to start at the point of weakness in that area where you strengthen people's capacity so that you build a strong family unit. If you have a strong family unit, then you can start to have a strong village unit. Then you can start to have a strong societal unit. If you want to rebuild from a society that has become highly dysfunctional in the way that it's working for a whole number of reasons, is that you look at it and you say, what can we do to strengthen those points? And so it's not about being in competition or taking over from another way. It's saying, where is the opportunity to help and support and to be of service? Because the whole notion of this is being of service to each other. And the human rights standard is if we are able to serve another or prefer another to ourselves, then we are, each person, if they're being supported, is all supported. So it's a very different notion from competition and from moving beyond the idea that I'm the best and I'm going to compete with you. No, this is about how we all support each other to all thrive. So it's a collective stage of learning to be interdependent with our resources and being supportive of each other so we bring out the best in each other's environment. And that takes education. It takes the development of values. It takes skills. It takes tools.
Perfect.
Yeah, just following on from what Kola said and also Ahmed about the Nigerian situation. This is kind of very personal to me at the moment because of the what I've just initiated very recently. The school holidays are finished now, and the school term's about to start, and many kids will not be able to start because the parents don't have money to get it to work. And so the concept then for me is, what do you do about that? If you can't send your kids to school because you don't have the money, do something else. And I'm thinking that in each of the eco-societies that we're building here, having Arini Method actually in there is a natural complement to that, because you know, where the kids can't physically attend a school because of money, they can do something else like online work for free. And then the Arini method comes in to look at what gaps there are between how it should be and how it is. And this is what I see. It's iterative. It's kind of it's recursive, because you have a first pass, you do great things. You have another pass and you do more things. And so all of what the pilot's going to show is how this emerges. Again, this is my understanding of it, Dr. Arini, and I every time I
Yes.
come across this, I find something new. So, you know, thank you for that. But with the Nigerian situation, in terms of the communities being different, the Nigeria is not different to anywhere else. Even like with England, it's the same basic problems. And this is, I think, what your lifetime of experience has brought out with the Arini method.
Yeah, and the other thing that's happening is that in the Western world, many people are taking their children out of school because schools are not meeting their children's needs. So we're going right back to square one, you know, where the home became the source of education. And then they linked into that. Now in Africa, if you haven't got enough money to send your child to school, then let's find a way to educate them in the village and being part of the village and part of the dynamic whole, so that they don't have to not have advantages of being able to develop capacity.
I want to
Yes.
something, Arini and David Benton, the rest. We're talking about 0 to 5 years old, right? So they're not going to be using online. Am I right, Arini, as part of the model? They're not going to be doing anything online. It's all at that age. It's very much the learning, right? So, correct? Yes.
Yeah. Well, the idea is you try and use your local resources, but there may be opportunities for video conferencing between other children, that they, you know, that you use them if you're using any media like that, that you are linking with others in a social way.
In that age. Okay. I'll tell you what's happening here when I discover.
Not as young as that age. That will be in the neighborhood, and it
Yeah,
will
not
be
at
in the
that age, 0
home.
to 5. Yeah, that's
I'm
too
talking
young.
about when they're older.
Yeah, at older, beyond 5. Okay, so I was,
Yes.
but your Arini method within that 0 to 5. So what I discovered here in Sicily is that that age, they don't have nursery schools here because the families want the children to be taught everything at the home. So they don't have nursery schools. It's just after that age, I think after 7 years old, then they have some school. So if you're going to do it here, for example, it's really involving families completely. The family, the parent, the mother is the teacher, the father is the teacher. There's no teacher. And this is what I've been discussing with the mayor today. So it's just the families. The playground is the community itself and the home.
Can I just input something here? Because this affects my Nigeria, or my Nigeria is wants to be involved in this, and in a big way. There's an opportunity. We consider it as an opportunity that has to be grabbed, even if individuals within our groups will have to invest, and we do invest our personal resources which is scarce to come by anyway in Nigeria. So, but in terms of technology, while giving my report last few minutes ago, I talked about technology. The target group in Nigeria might not have access to technology or limited access at best. So what I would have thought the middle ground is the organizers or the local groups handling the Arini program would, being adults, would be able to provide limited technology when it is actually needed, but not relying on those children. I don't want to jump beyond the schedule of the organizers, but what we are planning here with our eco-society is that the eco-society will be a society where this Arini program would be furthered in near future. That means the children within the eco-society, which we are targeting, and we are mostly targeting farming families. So the families, those are the most vulnerable in Nigeria. Those are the ones that have almost zero chance of sending their children to schools because the schools, the government schools are not functioning and the private ones are beyond the reach of this set of groups. So we are doing it together that, okay, when the eco-society starts, then this Arini method will go in, will go pari passu with it, and we will have enough atmosphere to further the aims and objectives of the organizers. Don't forget, why I'm talking about this group and with their limited access to technologies, because we are targeting 3 to 10. Because neuroscience shows us that this is the golden window for brain development, where values, wise choices, and emotional intelligence can be strongly wired into their neural pathways. You understand this now? So, of course, we see the importance of engaging the family so that what the children learn in the program is reinforced at home and in the community. But this is better organized and better coordinated within the community. So we would just be using this 6 months pilot program to prepare ourselves for, and it will work here. It will be a success. Our 6 months will be a success because we are sentenced to make it a success because we need it. We need it more than people who organize it here. There's an opportunity to empower this set of children, and we don't want them to miss these stages of their life. So I say kudos. In Nigerian system, we'll say 3 gbosas to you as a form of appreciation, if allowed there. Then I also say, if allowed again, God bless Mr. David for expatiating on the situation in Nigeria and making it more. We are not native speakers, so our explanations might be long and not so comprehensive, but he made it compedious, and I think we all understand. So thank you, Mr. David. We'll give you a title if you happen to come to Nigeria.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I mean, all I try to do is to understand, and so I think I have quite a good understanding of the Arini method in terms of being a resource that works on resources that are already there and reiteratively sort of makes it better. And so I think you and I need to talk further, Kola. I know I've been very difficult to get access to it for this last few weeks, but this is what we need to do. So I feel inspired by what you're saying about this is badly needed, and I think it's badly needed everywhere. And so when I see the TTGD eco-societies as being community hubs, the main ones, but not exclusively. I mean, okay, Arini method is one of the core verticals that's going to be implemented by eventually all of the eco-societies, maybe not at first. And so I think there's 6 or 7 so far who are interested in this in the pilot program, but it's going to go on from there. And every eco-society is going to be a hub of other activities. So I think the Arini method will propagate beyond the eco-societies. And so, you and I can work on that, Kola, because I'm also talking to someone else. So I'm thinking of bringing in as an eco-society on schools program in general, just to actually make a new school, like a virtual school. And but with there are two aspects. There's the academics, which you can do by yourself at a screen. I think age dependent, of course. And there's the other is the social development, because kids have got to get together. But there's nothing to say that you have to get together in a school, in a particular place, in a particular, given some particular group of people money. You have to take advantage of whatever venues you have, and there can be an online booking for the 3 to 5 year olds or the 7 or 8 year olds and so on, and so that's going to develop as well. But this pilot is the most important thing to get started, and we just do what we can with that and see what comes out of it. So thanks very much for the kind words, Caller. We'll just have to carry on.
Thanks.
I think probably are we done? I think this has been a very longer meeting, but it's very interesting.
I think we're done. So after this, I think Dr. Arini and I will go through on the plan and whether it's tailored for location or we're going to follow the same plan. It's a broad direction. And what preparations from your side is required? What is going on really? We'll have to get some numbers in, right? Some exact things they need to be prepared, right, Arini?
Yes, I mean, we shared those questions with you. So if you're having a challenge with any of those areas, let us know. Send it to Tahira so that we can accumulate that and to see what we can do to work with it. But when they do the pilot project, we'll record it. And so it will have availability to go back and watch again and to look at it again. So it's the idea that you don't lose the knowledge, because some of the ideas take a while for us to understand what you're saying and what we're looking at. And it's just, you then can go back and have an availability of being able to, as you shared lots of things in working with it, but it's keeping it as a living experience and going back and being supported to learn the bits that, as you apply it, you might need have missed a point and how you can get it across.
Yes, thank you so much. Anybody else? And then we'll wrap up and we'll share this recording.
The main thing is that you have to understand that it's the experience that enables you. It's very hard to describe the experience until you go through the experience and you understand the impact it has on you and the impact it has on your family. So it's like anything you can't ever really tell until you do it.
Okay, so we are done. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, bye.